Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, the Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be stating my final opinions and reviews on the TL-7, followed up with the highest damage currently recorded in the vehicle. So, stay tuned. The reason I usually make a second follow-up video to my first review on any new tank, especially when it costs money, is because I usually like to make sure that my first opinion on the vehicle stands true when I start to play it more and more. The first couple games you play, you always get equal tiered or lower tiered matchmaking, essentially making it impossible to know how this tank fights tier 10s. Once you get out, after about your first 10 games, you start fighting tier 10s, and you really get to see and feel how this tank performs. And I can definitely tell you that it's a bit worse in some areas and a bit better in others than what I expected from my initial breakdown of this tank. Its playstyle is weird, is really the best way to describe it, because the real killer that this tank has is the turret armor paired with the reverse speed. Going at only 10 in reverse means that if you overexpose your tank, you are in a very poor situation, because not only is your track wheels very poor, especially on the side armor, but that hatch is an absolute disastrous weak spot. And if you drive out in the open and then you try reversing, you reverse so slow that it's basically just a shooting gallery for everybody to aim at your hatch. I can name a couple battles I played on live stream yesterday where I would get clipped by TVPs alone just by showing my hatch and trying to reverse in the cover. So what I've learned about this tank is that it's not really a frontline vehicle. It's not a backline tank, and I wouldn't even call it a midline. It's in between midline and frontline, which is weird to say, but that's really the best way to describe it. I'm never driving this tank far enough back where I'm, a weak heavy tank, for example, like an AMX 5120. But I'm also not driving it super aggressive 90% of the time. So I'm usually right behind the heavies that have the bigger hit points, the bigger guns, and every time they get shot, I'm right next to them, and then I'm pumping shells out. So I'm basically frontline, but a bit safer, because with the terrible reverse, I'm putting myself in a situation where I can reverse out if it comes to that situation, which you're going to watch in this battle. Now, this is currently the highest game recorded in the tank at around 6,000 damage. I believe that there will be higher games in the future, but at least for now, it is the highest, so I figured I would showcase it and show how I was able to perform in the vehicle, because it definitely took me a good 20, 30-ish battles to start doing really well in the tank. Right now, I'm going about 70% with 3,000 average damage in the vehicle, which is more on par with how I do in a lot of my tier 9s. It just took a decent chunk of time for me to really understand its playstyle. So we can see that we got the Kampfpanzer 50-ton, the T-22, the majority of the enemy team, as we can see, is pushing up fairly aggressive. And because of that, I already know this is bad news written all over it. But look at this awful reverse. So you'll notice that I have not put myself in a situation where I can get stuck. I'm far enough back that I know if the enemy pushes, which they're going to do, I am in cover. I've got tanks behind me, like the Object 263, the Sheridan, and the 57 Heavy. That way, if I do get rushed, I know I will not be killed. Now that shell, I don't even know what to say about that shot. The gun is sometimes irritating. It has very bad on-movement dispersion, which means when you move the gun slightly, it sometimes just bloops for no reason. But we're doing okay. We've got 3 PEMs out and low-rolled all 3 shells, only dealing 990 damage, when we should be about 1,100, but you know what? It's fine. This shot here was also kind of cringe, just, yeah, well, not the best start to this battle. Our team is already down 2 very important vehicles. The Kampfpanzer 50-ton is playing way too aggressive, though. This guy gets penned by me once, and he has the opportunity to back up here. He could very easily keep on backing up and not get killed by me, but for some reason the KPZ just doesn't start backing up, and well, I finish him off. At this point, I was expecting to just be YOLO'd, but I do have, as you can see, a lot of teammates behind me, and the 57 Heavy is finally pushing up, and he's going to help me out big time. So, as you can see, at this point, I am frontline. I waited for my teammates to get pushed, and now that I have support, I am the frontline in the vehicle. And that's kind of how you want to play the tank. I got a very nice ammo rack into the 57 Heavy. However, it wouldn't have mattered at all too much because my 57 sold a shot would have finished off this guy. But I'll take the extra damage. We get a nice shot into the M103 for 400, and with that we have just broken the 3,000 damage barrier. Now the upper plate on this tank is very strong. It is about 320 thick base, and if you're loading heat, it's about 355 thick because of the fact that heat has less shell normalization. In fact, 0 shell normalization compared to AP. So essentially it's got about 5% worse pen. Because of that, that, very solid upper plate armor, and that M103 definitely learned his lesson when shooting at our upper plate. He bounced right off of it. It's a super, super troll upper plate. Now, we're aiming on the 704, very easy pen right onto his frontal lower plate, and it hits his mantlet. Very annoying. Very, very annoying that did end up bouncing. But you know what? The 704 is not my biggest problem right now. It's the YAG. Now again, I'm using this vehicle frontline, but I'm using it in a position that I know if the YAG tries pushing me, I have plenty of time to farm him, take advantage of the haul down capabilities this tank has before he can really get me. So there you go. Another very easy pen into the YAG. And yeah, I'm not really sure what his big brain plan was there. I do wish this tank had more gun depression, and I really don't know why it doesn't have more. Right now, I'm using the max gun depression the vehicle has. Does that look like the max amount of gun depression this vehicle could squeeze out? No. Over the front, this tank should have at least 8 or 9, maybe even 10 degrees of gun depression. It makes very little sense to me why this is the max when it very clearly could hold a lot more gun depression, but oh well. We get a nice pen into the YAG. We're up to 4,900 damage at this point, and he is driving right over the hill. The problem for this YAG is that, well, I just max rolled him, which made him an easy one-shot, and when you add that into the fact that he's not going to be able to kill me, yeah, this will be a pretty easy clear. He pushes past me, and bonk! We finish off the enemy YAG. 5,769 damage dealt. All that's left is the enemy Object 704 with 170 hit points. So we're going to climb our way up this hill. And hello, 704. Goodbye. 179 damage, putting us just shy of 6,000 at 5,939 damage. A pretty solid battle overall, and a very good showcase of how this tank should really be played. You should never be the frontline player. And even though I kind of had to be and assumed that role after my teammates died, the only reason I was really able to hold as well as I was able to was because of the fact I had teammates behind me supporting me. Even though the 57 Heavy wasn't the greatest support and the 263 wasn't the greatest support, the fact that they were there allowed me to not be pushed, allowed me to use my gun and my fantastic DPM for tier 9 I have. So not a bad battle at all, very easy win, and a pretty solid showcase of where I actually enjoyed playing the TL-7. There's a lot of games where I've absolutely hated playing it, but that was definitely one of the battles where it performed very well. So this game, we are up against a Boss Shotdown 25-ton AP, a Centurion 7-1, a T-54, a T-95, and a couple tier 8s. Against tier 8s, this thing is an absolute cakewalk. It is great DPM. You've got enough pen with standard to cut right through them. And when you add that into the fact that this tank has a really solid power to weight, I actually like that a lot. Power to weight is a very important thing when it comes to a heavy. It means that when getting into position early game going up hills, you can get there very fast. And even though this tank only goes 36, it always goes at its top speed, which is something that I do enjoy a lot about the vehicle. It allows it to play a bit more aggressive and get into that front line early. So in a situation like this, where I'm a top tier heavy, obviously I'm going to front line. This, again, is not like an AMX 5120 where you're going to sit all the way in the back, but as I said, the guns on movement dispersion is not very fun. And because of that, we missed a very easy shell on that IS-3 that should have hit. But, oh well, we got a bounce, which is nice, and we've dealt our first bit of damage this battle. You can see just where the DPM is very nice, how the gun just slaps out shells, loaded an easy heat shot, penetrate that enemy Emil-1. You know, the real nice thing about this tank is the fact that you have very good armor on both hull down and flat ground situations. Your upper plate, as I said, is over 300 thick, and your turret is pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's an amazing turret, but it's good enough. It's good enough to get bounces here and there. Even though you've got a hatch, people will still miss it. And I actually like that. I think that this tank is very solid at a lot of things, where the M103, where the AE Phase 1, or even, for example, the really any heavy tank, ST1, Type 68, a lot of them struggle on flat ground because they got big old lower plates. This tank's lower plate is very, very small, as you can see. Unfortunately, we bounced the T-95 because, once again, the shell just didn't go where we aimed. It's very irritating to watch my shells miss when they shouldn't be, but it's okay. We got our adrenaline back. We're getting out shells, so M103 is going to poke, and even though he basically kills himself, we are going to take advantage of him bleeding his health by getting another pen into the enemy T-95. Everybody shoots, so I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can get another tap into this T-95. Bonk! There you go. Nice heat right into his hatch for 300, and with that, we're up to 2,000 damage dealt. Okay, not too bad. I'm going to make sure that this IS-3 doesn't pen me, and there you go, angling towards him. I wasn't too worried about the Yo penning me, because that's not a lot of damage, but I don't want to lose 700 all at once. That's not a very, very fun thing. So we got a nice pen into the IS-3. We're up to 2,500 damage dealt at this point, and there you go. Upper plate getting a very solid bounce once again. Then the Yo bounces my track wheel, although I don't think that Yo knows what he's doing, but we blocked 1,830 damage at this point, which is a very solid chunk. Now we're going to get a nice slap into the side of the IS-3 for 370, and with that break the 3,000 damage barrier. Okay, not too bad. We got the Yo. He's able to cut right through my track armor. While this tank may have very good frontal armor, its side armor is trash. So make sure that you are not showing your sides at all. Just stay frontally on towards your opponents, and you will do a lot better. So we blocked, it says 2,500 damage, which is not bad at all, and we've dealt 3,995 damage. Now here's a very weird situation. I thought I shot before this ST1, and I apparently didn't. Even though it said we hit him, apparently I didn't. So, unfortunate. That would have been a nice 400 damage to add to my tally, but you know what? We're still at 4,000, which is not too bad at all. We're going to make our way over towards the Centurion 7-1 and see if we can get any more out. Now, once again, you can see that power to weight being nice, even though we have the other two heavies. Even an M103, you can see just how much faster I'm able to accelerate than those two vehicles. Here's the enemy Centurion 7-1. Let's keep on going and slam a shell into the side of his tank. Not too bad. The Centurion is able to penetrate me, but doesn't matter all too much. We're up to 4,400 damage dealt at this point, which is a pretty solid chunk. The Centurion is driving away, and well, not really sure what I want to do here. The Centurion's going to try and poke me, and we get a nice 200 damage slapping, 4,600 to finish off. Not bad results at all. It's a great example of where this tank, once again, does pretty solid at any situation you give it. The only time it is very poor is when you get stuck in a spot where you're in the open and you cannot reverse. I've had a lot of battles where you get stuck in a spot like that. It's not fun. So be careful with this tank if you do end up picking it up. Do not over-aggress. The moment you do, you will greatly, greatly regret it. But not a bad situation at all. We pulled off here. And as I said, I'm doing pretty solid in the vehicle with about 70% win rate, and I've been averaging about 3K in the last 15 or so battles. It was really just my first 20 that I kind of struggled in. So I like the tank. I am going to keep with my original review and give it an 8 out of 10. I really like the armor. I like the way the vehicle plays. I do wish it had better reverse speed. I think that is the only thing that should be fixed. But apart from that, I like the tank. It's not bad at all. So let me know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. If you like it, if you think it's bad. It's not a bad vehicle. I can tell you that for a fact. There's always people in my comment section complaining that I give a tank a decent review. Oh, it's one of the worst tanks ever. Well, if it was truly one of the worst tanks ever, I would not be performing this well in it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.